Hey everyone, so it's the next video in this series. We're going over 5 reasons to use different mapping libraries. It's a very common question I get, very common when you're starting out in doing mapping. How do I choose between Google Maps, Mapbox, MapLibre, Leaflet, OpenLayers? There's so many, Apple Maps. So in this video, we're going to go over Mapbox. So 5 reasons to use Mapbox, which is one of the libraries that I do use the most. So reason number 1 would be it's pretty. There's lots of pretty styles, lots of beautiful looking maps that Mapbox puts out as styles that you can make your map from. So if you're doing an interactive map, these serve as the kind of bottom layer for whatever information you're going to put on it. They have some really nice dark styles, outdoor, basic street maps, satellite maps, and they overall look really good, and they've been updating them over time. So I think that's a really nice thing. And one of the things about Mapbox is that you can also customize styles to a degree that you just won't see in any other mapping library or platform. There's a whole tiling system built into Mapbox where you can create styles, hide and show different layers, change font sizes, show certain geographic features and hide others. It's really customizable in that way. Of course, you really have to learn it, which is why I can have a whole channel full of videos all about learning Mapbox, but it does allow you to do a lot with just the way your map is going to look, making it pretty, making it your own map that really fits your purposes without having to build a whole custom tile server to do this. Reason number 2, kind of following up on the pretty thing, is that Mapbox gives you lots of really great ways to display maps. In the last year, they've really introduced some cool stuff like Globe View, which is just fantastic to actually have a 3D map when you zoom far enough out that's actually a globe. And in that, they also allow all kinds of different projections. We're generally used to this standard Mercator projection that many of us have seen, but there are a lot of other projections out there, and you can actually use them with Mapbox, and all you have to do is just change one line in your Mapbox GLJS code. That level of customizability is just not really out there with other mapping systems. And similarly, Mapbox has 3D terrain. You can turn on and off, and there's a whole panning system for making that 3D look, rotating the map. Mapbox, when it comes to implementation of things like 3D and sort of innovative ways of displaying the map and allowing you to have different options for that, is far ahead. And a lot of this stuff you can do just by creating a style and ticking some boxes or hitting some drop-down menus. In order to really learn it, you do need to dive into Mapbox more deeply, but really they do make it pretty user-friendly. So that's a great reason to use Mapbox if you're just looking for a lot of different ways to customize your map. Also, similarly to Google Maps, there's a lot of auxiliary APIs and services that Mapbox offers, directions APIs, elevation querying APIs, all kinds of other services related, geocoding, you name it. Mapbox has very similar services available. Whether they're at the exact same quality of Google's, it's probably very granular and depends on the specifics of your project, but it is a great thing. Mapbox is going to be able to handle a lot of solutions for both nice visualization and good quality data that you'll need to do your different types of mapping. Number 3, from a more developer side, Mapbox is really the only mapping system that I know of out there that's going to provide a full solution for handling big data. When I talk about big data, I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of points, really complex polygons, and just complicated geographic data of the type you might use if you're actually doing complicated analysis, if you're a data scientist, if you're mapping really large data sets. This doesn't apply to a lot of people who are just mapping a few locations, maybe for their store, or they need to color the states into different colors. You can load that onto any mapping library without it being a big problem and slowing down the whole browser. But if you have a serious data set, you have 10,000 or 20,000 different points, and you want to build some kind of heat map out of that, Mapbox is really going to be your best solution. They have a whole system of data sets and tile sets and styles, and then loading things on in certain ways in GLJS that are going to allow you to take advantage of their vector system and have this load really quickly in, again, a way that you're not going to find in other mapping systems. That being said, you do have to learn it, and it's a lot to learn how all their tile sets work, to learn how to upload data sets, to learn all the different formats and the ways from a developer side that you're going to create sources and layers and interact with them and show and hide them and all sorts of different things like that. It's not like it's just a really simple system to learn. But that being said, if you are working with a really large data set and you're more on the developer side, it's basically you're going to have to build your own tile sets and serve your own data through some complicated database fetching way, or you can really use Mapbox and leverage it. So that's a big plus in my book, but of course it comes with the caveat that you do have a lot to learn. Speaking of learning Mapbox, number 4 would be that the documentation is really great. It's well laid out. There's tons of examples and they're adding lots of more examples all the time. There's quite a bit of Stack Overflow answers and community around Mapbox, although it's still mixed up to some degree with their old library, Mapbox.js, which was deprecated quite a few years ago, but you'll still sometimes like run into answers about Mapbox.js when you're on Stack Overflow, and that can kind of screw you up because you're really looking for Mapbox.gl.js. So that being said, the documentation is quite good. I find it pretty easy to navigate, lots of good examples, the methods are well documented, all that kind of good stuff. But, from that developer point of view, in a broader sense, it is a lot to learn. There's no question that Mapbox is up there in terms of the most complicated mapping systems that you can learn when you're going to do some kind of front-end digital mapping. There's a lot of specific concepts that only really apply to Mapbox style maps. And it's really easy to just like get things working on there, but not in the right way or not in an optimized way by kind of hacking around it. That's very possible, and that kind of ends up taking away a lot of the advantage of Mapbox. It's also not necessarily straightforward if you're just coming from another mapping library. So if you've worked with Leaflet or Google Maps a lot, and now you want to do Mapbox, of course, some of the basic concepts will help, geography, GeoJSONs, these sorts of things. But a lot of the concepts don't come across that easily. So it is going to be a bit of a struggle. So, take a look at the videos on the channel, but it's really good to bear in mind that if you're going to embark on a new Mapbox project, you are going to have to learn quite a system, and it'll probably be a bit of a struggle for you. And the last point about Mapbox and why it's good to use is that they do have quite a generous free plan. So in recent years, I actually don't know how long it's been, but Mapbox requires you to enter a credit card in order to sign up for an account. They didn't used to do this back in the day, but there's been quite a few moves from Mapbox towards a more paid model. This has included moving from being open source to non-open source with Mapbox 2.0, and this introduction of having to sign up and put in your credit card. So those can kind of be a little scary. It's a lot more like Google Maps in that now, where you have to have this access token even just to load the library, or you've used Mapbox in any way. But that being said, their free tier is pretty generous. If you're building a bigger project, you definitely want to take a pretty close look at their pricing page, which is not easy to understand, unfortunately. There's all kinds of sliders, and it's not really totally clear what all of the different measurements are referring to, like map loads and tile queries and all these sorts of things. You have to dive in a fair bit. You can always get in touch with their customer support team, and they'll be pretty helpful. And in general, I've found Mapbox, the people that work at Mapbox, to be quite helpful and be quite engaged. So the kind of company side of Mapbox, when it comes to paying and interacting with the company, I think is quite good, but you do really want to be aware of your costs, and especially if you're going to make a large map that's going to have tons of viewers, you anticipate might have tons of viewers, you definitely want to take that into account and know what you're getting into. So I think those are 5 reasons why I think Mapbox is a good solution to use in many cases. Hopefully that's helped you out make a decision. And check out the other videos related to this if you're trying to pick a mapping library, and we'll see you in the next one.